Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell, joined as always by my co-host Marky Davison. Mark, how you doing?
For me personally, I'm not feeling too bad. To be honest, like it's been a crazy week with the Steelers, and we got knocked out of the playoffs. Some people saying we weren't meant to be there in the first place. I don't agree with that. I think we were meant to be there, but I just want to start the show off with this, okay? And this is how I feel about the game. How did we let Travis Kelce throw a touchdown on the Steelers? That to me sums up the whole game.
Yeah, it shows how in tune you and I are becoming. That typifies to me, everything that went wrong in that game, or just the difference in the level it was at. It was like, watching Alabama versus like whatever other college team that's close. Like the difference between if like you're number one versus your 10th,
like Hawaii or someone like that.
Yeah, it's just like you know what it actually felt like to me. It felt very much like any of the teams that the Chicago Bulls would play in those the six where Michael Jordan won. They'd play a team in the finals, and the team would be with them for a game or two, and then the Chicago Bulls would just take them out. Like it was just this Chiefs team is so well drilled, and this Steelers team, at the same time, there's lots of gaps, there's lots of injuries, and the thing that I think is not being talked about enough as people go through this forensic look at the season. The Steelers this season had a really odd quarterback in Big Ben, right? Regardless of whether you love him, you think he should have gone years ago, whatever, right? Most of the fan base, I think, is in the loving part. But this was the season, a lot of people forget, this was the season that the salary cap went down so significantly. So it's not like we had money to spend and acquire lots of talent. We lost a lot of talent with, Pouncey and DeCastro going and what have you. I just feel like in this game, you saw the difference between a team that had spent money on fixing the O-line. You saw a team that's drafted really well over the last few years versus a team that has done a bit of that, but it was always going to need to have renewal about now, whether it was last season before, whether it's this season or the seasons to come. We're more in that rebuild phase. They're where the Steelers were. The Chiefs are where the Steelers were, 2016, 2017, and so, yeah, just everything. And I think Michael Beck said it really well on the curtain call this week as well. Like, that this game was a microcosm of what the Steelers have done all season. Good defense at times. The offense couldn't keep the defense off the field. And then the Chiefs were just a better team.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you bring up, the 2016 Chiefs. Well, we beat the 2016 Chiefs 18-16, and that's when they had, I think it was Alex Smith, right?
Yeah.
And he was an older quarterback, and we had an older quarterback with Big Ben. So this season, to me, like I'm pretty proud of the fellas to how they played this season, 9-7-1 to get in the dance. But when you look at everything, and we'll go over the next few months, and we'll talk about pretty much everything. Big Ben was older. He was 38 years old. He wasn't mobile in the pocket. He couldn't really do it. He couldn't really throw the deep ball that well. The offense didn't really work with the O-line. The only real standout and the consistent character was Najee. For me, Najee had one of the best. You might not bring up Move too, but for me, Najee was just the guy. And if there are any fans that are blaming him for that fumble, get over it, mate, because even if he does fumble once, the defense should have his back, and then 2 plays later they score, and the Chiefs go up like 14 points in like 2 minutes or something. So this game to me was, I had hope. I had hope when TJ did the fumble recovery and ran away. I was like, wow, what a great play, 7-0. We have a chance. And then from that moment, the next drive, the Chiefs went down 7, 14, 21, and the game was just out of reach. And it was every single game we had talked about before, like the Chargers, like the Vikings, exactly the same way we played in the playoffs versus the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Browns. It was everything expected that every single NFL fan who hates the Steelers wanted to happen. and every fan who is a Steelers fan and wanted to be proved right for us being wrong wanted to happen. So it was tough to watch. It was tough to watch Big Ben with his last game go out that way. But I'm still really proud. Honestly, I'm really proud of this Steelers team for what had happened. And I know you want to talk about the offense, like what happened with this Steelers team in 2021 with all the madness going on. We still made it to the playoffs when we had a chance. And all the other teams who haven't made it to the playoffs, like the Lions, the Jets, the Jags, would love that. So we need to, that's pretty good success. At the same time that you look at the stats, right? Everything was, I looked at them earlier today, throughout the whole team, everything was pretty much even. Our turnover ratio.
Let's talk about that. Let's do that. I want to pause you there. I think to me, and I just want to welcome our regulars in the live chat to start off with. So Brad, George, Ryan O'Toole, Devil, George Teston. We've got awesome to see. I think we've got Jim Dillon in there too. The first thing I want to say was with Najee Harris's fumble. The guys, if that wasn't a playoff game, I don't think he plays, right? So you've got to, you got to look at that for one. Secondly, he's trying to do 50 billion things so he doesn't finish with minus yardage, like Reggie Bush did in his final year in the NFL. So I think a bit of credit where credit's due with Najee, and that's a fumble. He didn't have one fumble in the regular season, 381 touches. The NFL record is 423. Najee is second in his rookie year behind an awful O-line. And not to say every player on there is awful, but together as a collective, they weren't good this year. I don't care what anyone says, they weren't good. And so, that's the first bit there. As you said, to watch Big Ben go out like that wasn't great. The thing for me, though, is that I feel like I'm drifting into that fan territory of we haven't won a Super Bowl in 11 years. We haven't really done anything in the playoffs in at least 5 years. So I'm happy the team gets to the playoffs. I think it's fantastic that they're committed, that they can win games, against teams that really should beat them, and they know how to win. I think that shows a drive and a will to win and, an overall team culture, which got questioned a lot at times this season. But I do think that is a lot more rock solid than what we all realize. And you can tell in these exit interviews. But I'm also sitting here and I'm like, I feel like it does change. I don't want change for change's sake, but certain change has to happen because we are off the pace compared to the Bills and the Chiefs, and I think we're there with the Titans. I think when the Titans are on, they play well. I think we're potentially slightly off the pace maybe with the Bengals. I think but a fit Steelers team probably they can easily beat this Bengals team as well. But going back to it, I think there are certain changes required unless we want to continue to be out in the wild card round or the divisional round.
You know what we are? You know what we are, Matty? We're a bit like me with my life at the moment. I'm playing PS4 and all my mates are playing PS5. Hands down, that's what we are. That's what Steelers are.
I don't think it's like that. I think
You don't think so? There's a big difference, like you just said with the playoffs, right? So I'm still stuck on the PS4, but the playoffs we haven't won 4 games. We've lost 4 games in a row, and I had that stat that was when the Bengals broke it, 11,333 days since a playoff win. This Pittsburgh Steelers now are about 1,800. So it's been about it's been 6 years.
Yeah,
we're getting in that territory. If we go to another playoff game and you lose another playoff game, no matter how well I thought the season was good, I thought the season was great, right? Well, good to great. But if you lose that playoff game again, that's 5 in a row. And the Bengals had 7 in a row before they won. So it's, are we turning into the Bengals? It's just, you need to win a playoff game. We had to win. Yeah, they're falling too. They're big time falling. But we need to win a playoff game. And I thought Big Ben gave us the best chance to win this year, no matter what, right?
Well, and I mean, look at the fourth quarter comebacks and the game-winning drives. I mean, Ben couldn't have done any more with that. 6 fourth quarter comebacks and 7 game-winning drives, top of the league.
So, Yeah, Big Ben, I think, gave us the best chance all year, even though he was not mobile in his last year. And I don't think he's coming back. I'm not too sure about if he plays for another team. He always said he was going to not be a Steeler. Didn't say he wasn't going to play. So we'll see what happens. But we do need,
I thought that would have happened. It's interesting you touch on that. I think we should quickly explore that. So I had it going into this season, and I was on a show. Well, Jeff came on this show, Jeff Hartman. I think you were sick one of the days, or you had the pickleball competition. And then, Jeff said, do you think, Big Ben could play elsewhere? And I said, well, I could see him going to another team this season if he wanted to. And I named a few teams that I could see him fitting with. But I struggle to see that now. That you've got to really think about the teams that have a good he needs a really good O-line. And you look at the teams with really good O-lines, most of them have, a rookie quarterback, or they have a good quite a good quarterback as well. And I don't know whether you completely change that up, right? So, I don't know. I think Ben's done. Yeah,
it just
maybe. But I could see the Steelers, right, at 0-5, 0-6. And then they had a bye. Yeah, I could see that. I see that. I see that.
Well, we don't know. We don't. I've always said until I see him do the actual press conference, we don't know what's going to happen. But I don't think he'll be a Steeler.
I don't think he's going to do one. Right?
Really?
Yeah, I think you think about that statement. Didn't Michael Jordan send the press release basically just saying I'm retiring or whatever it was? I think. If you think about everything that Big Ben's been through early on in his career, he doesn't want to. I get it. I don't know. He's got nothing to gain from sitting there and doing a live press conference retirement like everyone else, because he's just going to sit there and face questions from, reporters about all the stuff, all the negative stuff, right?
That is true.
He might do a one-on-one interview with someone about his retirement. I could see that. He might release a doco like he did when he came back from the injury. But I don't think, I work in the media advisory field outside of, as my professional job.
Well,
I if I'm sitting there with Big Ben, I would be telling him, you got nothing to gain out of doing that.
That's quite funny you bring that up, because there's a few stories with Big Ben's past, right? And we're not going to go into it, but 2 days later after he exited from the playoffs, I think I saw about 3 articles come out and just bash him and say, not ex-great quarterback who threw for 1,000,000 yards and was one of the best Pittsburgh Steelers to ever play the game, 2 times Super Bowl winning champion. No, the second headline was all the other past accusations of him, and we're not going to go into that, but I get what you're saying. Why would you put yourself in the spotlight? You can just kind of walk away and you maybe come back as a coach. For Big Ben,
I'd love to see him back as a coach. I honestly, I think that would be, quarterback coach. I think that would be terrific. I think he and Tomlin together would be terrific. The only thing that I think Ben needs a few years away from the game. I think he needs to get, I just think his family put up with a lot, right? So I can imagine, wanting to spend some time there. Number two.
Oh, Matty, sorry, but I'll interrupt you just 1 second. Imagine being that family for 18 years and you never get to see your partner. Isn't that crazy that he runs around for 18 years and goes all over America? Family time must be just half the year's cut off, really.
Yeah. So I think that's the first one, right? Do that. Spend a bit of time there, spend a bit of time away from the game, and then come back, because Big Ben didn't want to, and I get it, you're a Hall of Fame quarterback, you're focused on winning, what have you, but he didn't really want to help develop that younger guy. I think he needs some time away from the game to separate Big Ben as the quarterback for the Steelers versus
good idea,
Big Ben, the Steelers legend that, offensive mind and what have you. I think the other thing too is that gives the Steelers a time right now, whether we draft a quarterback or we don't. It gives us a time to let that person or let that veteran fail, and then we go out in the draft next year or in 2024, and use lots of draft picks and get a high top end quarterback, or it allows a veteran to play a couple of years, and then we mold someone else, and then Big Ben can come in and really work with someone. I don't think he's ready to work with someone the 6 months after him retiring. I don't think we're not ready for that. I think he needs some time as quarterback coach. And I think Sullivan's a good quarterback coach. So I think there are a couple of things you got to think about from that perspective with Big Ben. Equally, though, I just want to say it, so I've said it. But I've said to you before, I've listened to a few interviews with Luke Kuechly. Man, if they're moving on from Keith Butler and they're looking for a linebackers coach, and I know Luke Kuechly played in a 4-3, but you'd be silly not to talk about bringing him in as a linebacker coach. I mean, the stuff, the intellect that he talks about, and the need of the line that I've heard him talk about the linebackers and the way they need to fit between the defensive line and the secondary, and how it all revolves around each other. I mean, I just have a chat with him and let him know that you're interested, even if he's not ready to be a coach. Because when he is ready to be a coach, mark my words, now in 2022, Luke Kuechly is, he is going to be a force if he wants to be a coach.
That's a good question, though. Is the transition as a player to coach as easy as we put it?
No.
Or is there?
You got to be top.
There has to be something
echelon.
else going on. There are some coaches that couldn't be players. Like, did Bill Belichick, did he even play? I don't remember if he played.
He did. I think he played for the Browns.
Well, he wouldn't play now. But you know what I'm trying to say there. Like, if you're a good player, not all great players go on to be great coaches.
100%, and that might be Big Ben. Who's to say he's going to do that? I could see him going, "Nah, I'm done with it completely."
And just walking away. Yeah, but that's interesting. I think even in whoever we bring in as coach, if it's offense or defense, you just need someone to really fire him up and get and start to buy into the Steelers system. We talked about it a few times during this season. There is no real culture. We're missing that culture with the Steelers at the moment. There's no real leadership in that locker room for me, and it shows. Like, Big Ben was he was the the leader on the field, but he wasn't going around pumping everyone up and getting everyone crazed about the team. But he went out there and did his job and did the best he can.
All right. Well, I've got to interrupt you. Breaking news, and B-Love is on it. And I thought this might be happening. Just as we were talking about it, Mark, 15 minutes ago, according to tweets from NFL reporters, 1 minute ago on the Pittsburgh Steelers website, Keith Butler announces retirement. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone.
There you go.
So
breaking
I can
news.
read the statement live for everyone. But that is the Steelers defensive. This is according to the statement on Steelers.com right now. 1 minute ago, Steelers defensive coordinator Keith Butler announced his retirement on Saturday evening in a statement released by the team. "It is an emotional day as I announce I'm retiring from my football coaching career. I've spent every year since 1990 as a coach in the NFL and the NCAA, but the time is right for me to walk away after a successful career, both playing and coaching the game I love. I want to thank the Rooney family, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, and all the coaches and players that I've been involved with over my entire coaching career. I look forward to spending more time with my family who have been so supportive of me throughout the years. I wish nothing but the best to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I will be cheering them on during my retirement." Butler served as the team's DC since being promoted to that role in January 2015. He'd previously been the linebackers coach for 12 seasons, 2003 to 2014. He was obviously a part of the 2 Super Bowl winning teams. He came to the NFL after coaching with the Cleveland Browns. His career started with the Cleveland Browns, and before that, in the college ranks with Arkansas State and Memphis. He played in the NFL for 10 seasons, 1978 to 87 for the Seahawks, and he was a 3-year starter at inside linebacker for the University of Memphis, leading the team in tackles his junior and senior seasons and being named to the Associated Press's All-American team in 1977. So we have the retirement there. I don't think this is a Bruce Arians retirement. I think this is a retirement, an actual retirement for me. I could see another team going to him later on and saying, "Hey, do you want to, in a year or two's time?"
Always,
But
exactly.
I think from today onwards, I actually think this is a retirement right now. It's really interesting. I mean, I bring it up because what does this mean for their draft as well? We're not going to get deep in draft on today's show, but JR Marconi brings it up in the live chat talking about Devin Lloyd. I agree. If Devin Lloyd's on the board at 20, I'm picking him straight out. I think he's an awesome linebacker pick there. But I think there we go. And then people in the live chat are saying fire Canada. We've had a lot of talk about quarterbacks as well. So we can crack into that maybe a little bit later on. But I think, we've seen that first change. I mean, I saw reports, and we'll come back to Keith Butler, but, I saw reports as well, Mark, in the last 24 to 48 hours about, I think it started on 93.7 The Fan, so who knows if it's true or not, that Art Rooney might even step in and tell Tomlin to fire Matt Canada. I think one of the things that I want to talk about today is, you're right, is the offense. And I went through the stats like you did, and I think some of the bring up some of the stats that you did too. But, the team were 23rd in yards, right? So they're in the bottom 10 in the league for yards on offense. They're 24th, bottom 8 to 9 for first downs. They were 29th in net yards per team, the third worst team. Per attempt. They were the third worst team in terms of net yards per attempt. Ridiculous. 28th in terms of rushing attempts. Despite what we talked about, and despite the greatness of Najee Harris, they were 29th in rush yards gained. They were 29th in yards per attempt. They were 28th in time of possession, which put ridiculous pressure on the defense, and we saw that in the latter half of the season, particularly. They were 25th in plays per drive, and they were 28th in yards per drive. I mean, none of this is a ring endorsement, regardless of whether you've got Big Ben or you don't have Big Ben, or whether he fits Canada's team or he doesn't. Players have talked about the fact that there was a meld between two of them when you talk about the wide receivers. You can't, you're not going to... The fact that we're even in the playoffs with those sorts of numbers is, that speaks to Big Ben's greatness, but at the same time, you can't have a quarterback that doesn't fit the offensive scheme of the coordinator. Doesn't work.
Yeah, well, like I said, this is I'm really proud of this team. But however, this season, in my opinion, was good. But when you look at all the stats, it was just even. The whole thing was even. We beat the Bills, but we lost to the Bengals, twice. We beat the Ravens, and we went 4-2 against the Browns and the Ravens. But then we lose to the Chiefs, and we lose to the Packers. Just to me, it felt even. 9-7-1. And you even brought up the stat with the possession, right? In the regular season, we had 30 minutes and the opposition had 31 minutes. Even again, The one stat I found was with the running game. I think it was we had 1.5K yards and the opposition had 2.4. Our average, and that kind of sums up the whole season. Our average was about 4 yards a carry and the opposition had 5. So they were winning the battle in the trenches, and this team just didn't have it. When we came to the game versus the Chiefs, we just didn't have it, and something needs to change. The other question I want to ask you, and I know we keep going back and forth from offense to defense, but how the blimey hell does TJ Watt get 22.5 sacks and we don't do anything in the playoffs? That's what makes me a bit angry as well. You have such good players like TJ Watt and Hayward, right? And we lose again. You know what I'm saying? How?
Yeah, but
how
it
did that
goes
happen?
to a conversation that you and I had on your Steelers Nation Australia earlier in the week. We tried to have, and then I got evacuated with a fire alarm. But it goes down to the fact that they're not good enough across the board. They're relying on 4 or 5 guys to do it. And this draft is really important for it. Dave Schofield was talking about this in the previous show. He talked about the Steelers will do what they do and get an outside linebacker. They kind of have to. They need rotation there, right? And a good pass rusher that's not a rookie is not going to want to sit behind them. They tried that this year with Melvin Ingram. He didn't want to be there, right? There's not a lot of those pass rushers that will. But we've got to, if you're going to bring back Matt Canada, this is what I was saying, right? I'm not going to talk about specific players, but if you're going to bring back Matt Canada with the stats we just talked about, you better draft some good guys on defense, because you're going to be playing a lot of defense and you're going to need a lot of rotation through 17 games, right? Or you go out on offense and you find the guys that are going to let Najee Harris and the tight ends to catch, give them time and space, give the wide receivers, time to get down the field. Yes, Mason doesn't have the best NFL arm. People have a million problems with Mason. But if Mason has more than 3 seconds to throw, we might be in a decent position. I see things like Sam Howell. Sam Howell, I think he's better than some people give him credit for. But if you draft Sam Howell and you don't have an O-line, he's going to get destroyed. He's not quick enough to do that. Malik Willis, he can move around in the pocket. Fine, he can move around and run around. He's probably the most athletic quarterback in this draft. But does he have the arm? He needs time to throw so he can read the field. He's not ready yet. Like, you can go through and there are 2 quarterbacks that I think are really good in this draft. But again, they need an O-line. They're not big. They're not entering the league like Big Ben at 6'5" and 250 plus pounds or whatever he entered the league at, right? And again, he came in behind a decent O-line. If you don't touch this O-line, as I say, you better get some depth in defense because your defense is gonna be out there the majority of the time.
Yeah, well, I want to ask you a question, Matty, right? So with Matt Canada, what to you would be success in the year 2022? With this offense being so bad last year, what do you in terms would be a success? Does he need to get the wins? Does he need to get the big plays? Do we need to get
Wins? I think it's wins, but he got 9-7-1, right? And they're 2 fumbles away from winning the Detroit game. So let's just call it 10-7 for argument's sake.
Yep.
10-7 will get you need 11 or 12 to win the division. I think if you get 11 or 12 in this division, you win it right now. The division's too good when they play each other. You're going to get there. Mm-hmm. But what are you going to do in the playoffs? If you get 12 wins, fine. But what happens when you get to the playoffs? I don't know if Matt Canada can scheme that up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like with him improving, if you keep him, for me as a
I don't know if you can improve to that. No. I mean that in the most sensible way, right? Let's say Matt Canada, assuming Ben fitted Matt Canada to a T, right? Let's say Big Ben was 30 and fitted Matt Canada to a T, right? In terms of the way he plays with what Matt Canada wants to do. Matt Canada is a first-year OC. He would need a couple of years and some failures. People only learn from failure. If you're not going to let someone fail, they're never going to learn. So, we all have high expectations, but teams are going to fail at times. Sometimes you'll fail and you'll win. We saw that with the Steelers this season. But sometimes you'll fail and lose. But the problem for Matt Canada a little bit is the timing of when he's come in. He came in Big Ben's last year. He came in with a very different
That's a fair point.
Right? This year, right, he can come in. Even if they had the number 1 pick in the draft and they choose to trade back, whatever they choose to do, but they get the quarterback that fits Matt Canada's system. There's no guarantees it's going to work. There's no guarantees it works if he's a 10-year experienced OC. And so the thing for me about Matt Canada is put outside the schemes and which players fit whatever. Look at the optics of it. He needs to do an awful lot to change this fan base. And this fan base, when they decide that they hate someone, right? Look at Mason. Mason is definitely a better player than what he was, but no one will give him the time of day. No one even let him see what he can do.
Mate, they'll be firing us soon. Fire Mark.
We're guilty of it too.
Matty. I'm sick of the firing stuff, but I agree, get behind your player. But I want to bring up a good point here, what Ryan O'Toole makes. He says, I watched the Chiefs run creative plays. We ran plain vanilla. That's very true. We did run very vanilla plays, and I'm sick of seeing that receiver screen out to the running back. It just doesn't really work all the time, or to DJ. And it just seems that we're not getting in flow with the offense. And is it personnel, or is it the will of the player? Or is it Matt Canada? My question is, if you do keep with Canada this year and you keep him, then there has to be a reason for him to improve, right?
Oh, and I didn't really answer your question either. So I think the things are, in answering your question properly, because I do want to answer it, is you need 12 wins, right? You got to be in the top. You got to be all those things that we talked about. 28th, they got to be 18 or better, right? The efficiency needs to be better. You need to be on the field longer. You need to be on the field in the top 12, right? You need to be on the field for the top 12 in times of possession, plays, yards. That's just got to be there. He has to have a 50% improvement across stats.
I agree. I think he needs to be.
The team's not going to the Super Bowl without that, no matter how good the defense is.
Well, I think it needs to be top 15, top 12 offense, because we saw it last year. I didn't feel comfortable. And I live streamed every single game on my Steeler page, right? And I didn't feel comfortable at any time. Not one game did I feel comfortable.
Well, I had a question for the live chat, because you and I talk about this all the time, right? And it feeds off what Ryan O'Toole said with the Chiefs, us playing vanilla. We play vanilla because we're struggling to even throw the ball like a normal offense, right? And Big Ben, like, nah. Ridiculous. But the question I've got, and so everyone in the live chat, I want you to just put Y or N or yes or no. Mark and I sit there all the time and we think about it, and maybe it's we're the Madden generation or whatever it is. But we hate that the Steelers, even when they're ahead, and now it's not really been that much this season, it's previous years, the Steelers never put a team to the slaughter. They never put 50 points on a team, right? Even if you do that, you can put a lot on tape, right? If you're winning that much, you can put things on tape that other teams have to scheme for. It's not about padding stats. It's about giving the team, letting them get in a flow, creating that winner confidence, that winner mentality, keep going. I know there's a respecting some people like that in the NFL, and you don't need to blow a team out of the water. I know that you don't want to injure people, but we haven't seen the Steelers rack up a score in years. So I want you to put in live chat, do you think if the Steelers are up, they should continue to rack up scores? Or do you think that the Steelers should just play it safe, take the win, be done with it? Yes or no? I'd love to know in the live chat what you all think, because Mark and I talk about this all the time. Yeah. And the reason I asked this, I don't think Matt Canada's offense is capable of racking up the score.
Well, we couldn't score points. You just could not score points. So I want to bring it back to, I think with this kind of mentality, if you can score points, just keep scoring points until they can't stop you, right? That's my mentality to win the game. I remember a game, and I've got it here in my on the internet. 2015, the Steelers at home versus San Fran 49ers. We won 43-18. That's when we versed Kaepernick and we destroyed them. That's when we also destroyed our mate Jared Hayne. He was a 49er, and we just took over the game 43-18. We haven't really seen that because Big Ben was more mobile back then, and he could do certain things, and he could just throw 57-yard passes and get 7-0, 14-0. Our defense can come out and start playing. We had Ryan Chase here too. All these players would get after it. Now we're just trying to hang into the game, and we just can't score points. I think you said the average was 20 points a game or something similar.
I didn't say the average. I can pull it up for you now. It's the average was
20. I've got it here. 20 points a game.
20. Yeah.
You can't win games at 20 points a game.
And do you know why you can't? Do you know why you can't though? You can't win it because if your defense holds someone to 20 points or under, you're usually a top 8 to 10 defense in the league. That's why you can't. We had the 20th defense in the league, right? And we held the team opponents to 398. We had the 21st offense in the league at 343 yards. No. You got to be able to score 25 points or more. You need that 5-point buffer, as an average. Now, I want to go up to the answering the question. Ryan O'Toole, run up the score. Kenny D, yes. Just me, run up the score if we can. George Teston, play to the gun. Tyler Cromley, yes, run it. JR Marconi. Can you let us know if it's Marconi or Marconi? I want to make sure I'm not pronouncing your name wrong. I hate when people pronounce names wrong. He says, run it up. Look at what happened against Tennessee. Almost blew the lead in the second quarter. Exactly. Good fella. Tom Brady plays in blowouts all the time. Get some backups in, but keep pushing. Exactly. This team, until this team goes, we want to put it now. And I know it's not Tomlin's way. I know we talk about the Steeler way, what have you. But you got to do it. We talk about, and this defense even said, some of the defensive guys said, I think it was Highsmith said in his post-exit interview, I've watched almost every single one of these this week. I keep watching these and I'm really trying to digest what they're saying and work some things out. He said, we've got to get that killer instinct. We need that. We need that from the offense as well. And we go back to the complementary football. How often did we talk about complementary football? I talked about it with Rich when you were unwell a couple of weeks ago, Mark. We don't play it. The offense needs to keep the defense off the field so TJ can rack and Hayward and all those playmakers can do great things and rack it up. But the offense needs to get into a rhythm. There's no confidence because there's no consistency.
Well, I haven't seen this team. When's the last time that it's just this team in the last 2 or 3 years, and it could be a Big Ben thing, could be coordinated. I don't know with the players. We can't get first downs. And if you can't get first downs, you cannot win the game. You cannot score points. But we still go 9-7-1, which is great, right? And I am, like I said, I'm super proud. But at the same time, you know that when you turn the football game on, that if we get the ball, we're gonna go run. Probably a pass to the outside goes nowhere. Then 3rd and 4, we're going deep, and that goes nowhere.
Well, 100%.
So
and
it has to change.
There was that 3rd and 1 that DJ dropped the ball on that slant against the Chiefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I sit there sometimes and I watch it, and I'm like, they never scheme more than one read open. Now, I know Ben often reads the defense when he gets given the play or whatever, or to give him the options on plays. He gets up there, they do the pre-snap, he reads what the defense is doing, often this in the last 2 years. I've heard someone analyze it and say it seems like he just picks who he's going to before he throws it, and he has to because he doesn't have any time possession. We need a better O-line so that someone can sit there and go, who's open? We need a better O-line so on 3rd and 1, we can run Najee freaking Harris up the bloody middle. It's just not good enough. And I know it seems very chicken and egg. A good offense might allow Matt Canada to do his thing, and Matt Canada needs to work with what he's got there, as it was said in the live chat, and I agree to a lot of that. You can't just blame your tools. But I think just scrap it both at this point.
Well, look, I know we have a good team, right? I think we do have a good team with a lot of stars, but at some point you got to put everything together. And right now on offense, they're not. We're the worst. We're the worst team on rushing the ball again. I think like 32nd or something, or 30th or something really bad. There's just something missing. Like you and I talked about it off air. There is something missing, and if that's a coaching change or a philosophy, we're running up the score, or doing some trick plays or something or even being more creative like the Chiefs did. Mahomes threw to the O-line. Mahomes threw the football, got a TD to the big fella up front, the right tackle.
Mate, you know what we're going to get? We're going to draft in the 2nd or 3rd round. Chica's in the 3rd round. Daniel Falele, the Minnesota tackle. Mark, I don't know if you've seen this guy. I'm pretty sure he's actually an Aussie. But
I like his name. His name's cool.
Mate, guy's like 6'9" and about almost 400 pounds.
Let's go.
Let's get that guy. Let's get that guy running up the middle, man. He wants to play right. Yeah, he is. He's an Aussie. He's 6'9" and 410 pounds, but I think his actual playing weight this season was more like 375. But the guy is massive.
You do make a good point. It's 3rd and 2, and we want to go 25 yards for a pass. Why can't we just get the
we pick a slant? The defense is crashing like the short yardage and there in case you do play actually you actually fake it and end up with a run play, and you're doing a slant to DJ who's already dropped the ball in that game. You've got Zach Gentry and Pat Freiermuth. Why can't you throw like a high pass that they can just basketball jump and or Claypool. I mean, we know Claypool can't fight for a ball in the air. It frustrates me. And Ryan O'Toole brings up bringing Juju back. I want this more than anything. I think he was so missed, right? That catch, if he's in DJ's position, he doesn't drop that. I'd love to have him back. But I don't trust Matt Canada to do anything that's going to get Juju open.
Well, the biggest thing is nothing changed throughout the season at all, really. It was just the same offense throughout the whole season. Like, it was just from day one, from week 1 to week 17 or week 18 in the playoffs. Same offense, and it was Najee churning his legs over, doing the best he can. How many times did Najee run his feet where he was in that getting tackled by 3 or 4 defenders, and he still fell 4 or 5 yards forward? If we get the better O-line behind that and start doing things. But the thing is, it's a mixture of a lot of things. It's being creative on the offense. It's the players wanting the will to play. Like, I'm kind of like, right now, I'm kind of done with Claypool. I think that guy is that big and that talented. You got to stay on your feet. I cannot.
You know what? If he's not gonna, and I agree with you. And I don't just think you should just trade away players willy nilly. But if they, and that's the Aussie slang for today. Mark and I probably aren't going to do some of the slang today. So willy nilly.
Well, I've got one.
Oh, what do you got?
Well, mine was because I am proud of this team, and I'm just like this season, right? I'm stoked. I'm stoked for this season. But there's a lot of other issues coming into, all over the team. But I'm pretty stoked for the season. What happened with what we had? I'm proud and stoked. But yeah, back to your Claypool stuff.
Back to right. But if another team offers a decent trade for him, particularly in the draft, and there's players on the board that you want, you've got to listen at this point in time because the guy is basically almost in a tight end body. Maybe they ask him to add a few pounds and you get him playing tight end and get him blocking. But like it's 6'5" or 6'4.5", whatever I think he is, at 235 pounds. Come on, man. Jump up and get the damn ball, right? But I want to bring up Goodfella, right? And I love Goodfella's icon picture. I don't know whether he's Aussie or not, but it's a very Aussie like Christmas camping trip right there.
Yeah.
But Goodfella 1422 says when your punter is one of the most exciting players, it's not good. 100%. How many times did he punt in the Chiefs game? Was it 9? I mean, come on, man.
I don't even want to know. But look, going back to Claypool, man, I've never seen a receiver fall over so much. How many times can you not have the body position? Maybe that's what you need to work on as a receiver, like Hines
Claypool needs to watch some Martavius Bryant highlight clips.
Mate, you need to do something like even AB and those good receivers, the route running ability and just their presence on the field and body control. Every single time he goes for a ball, yes, he gets a few of them. He gets a few of the jump balls, but most times he's just falling over and he's trying to get for the flag, and he gets a lot of flags as well, right? Because he runs down they can't catch him, they're holding him back. But in my opinion, I would be happy to honestly look to maybe let him go or trade him away or whatever, and bring in a brand new talent and go, here's a new guy I can get around because I just find with these.
Sorry. The only thing I'm going to say is he's on a rookie deal, right? So you may as well you either keep him or you trade him. Like he's not worth cutting by any stretch of imagination. But maybe they do need to sit there and say, do we have a Kyle Pitts do we have a poor man's Kyle Pitts on our hands? Do we have someone that we can move? But again, I want a tight end that will fight and jump for the ball like Freiermuth does. I don't Claypool doesn't do it. I don't get it.
Well, he just doesn't have any control with his feet or body presence. And the cornerbacks who are matching up against him, they're already pretty much won the route. I think in most situations, no matter how good a cornerback you are, because Claypool, in my Australian opinion, he's doing some really good things. At the same time, he's getting beat by himself because he can't the body control what he's doing, and we all see it as a fan. It's the fan perspective. Mate, you got to stand up. You got to a few catches where he's jumping in the like he's playing AFL, right? He's jumping too far in front of the ball. He's coming down. He's getting his feet chopped in the air. It's just it's very similar sometimes too with a bit of like Eric Ebron too. He could never really stay on his feet too when he was catching the ball and run after the catch. The difference is with your mate Muth doing fantastic things, mate. When he catches that football yard after catch, he's running down people's faces and he's getting first downs. With Claypool, I think when he catches the ball, that's it. There's nothing else behind
what Josh Parker. Yeah, and I like what Josh Parker says. He agrees with us on Claypool and says they don't have different plays and routes for him. It's generally a fade route to the outer corner. Teams know that, and they're usually covered. Exactly. And they cover that with a deep safety coming across the middle. You're going to get an interception, right? Like, I completely agree. We didn't see. You know what I found odd this season as well? When they needed a big play in the fourth quarter, how many slants or the crossing routes did they run with DJ getting the ball and then running off yards after the catch for 20 or 30 yards? Why are you doing that in the first quarter?
Oh, mate, you're telling me.
And put the defense on the back foot or on their heels. This is the problem. We smashed Randy Land so much, right? The Steelers have had this trip to Randy Land. Hated that, right? Then we've gone on a trip to Canada, and it's a bit better, but it's not much better, right? Where do we go next? I mean, this is it because this trip that we're on right now, not exactly a good one.
That's a brilliant analogy. Going to Randyland now, we're going to Canada, but you just pissed off Canadian listeners and Michael Beck. But it makes sense. Man.
I'm saying he's doing you guys a disservice right now. I'm just saying, So I don't. The thing about it though is as well, if you're going to get rid of Canada, who are you going to bring in? And that's the thing. Like, a lot of people can talk about a DC like a Fangio or a Zimmer. I mean, Zimmer plays a 4-3. I still sit there sometimes and wonder about a 4-3, but I think we're 2 or 3 seasons off that with just the way that our defensive lines can structured, even if we wanted to. And I think Tomlin much prefers a 3-4 anyway. That's his tendency. So I can't see that changing while he's the head coach. But I do sit there with the OC and I'm like, well, who are you going to bring in? And I don't think people have necessarily addressed that one. And I'm a big believer in, if you're going to make a change at a coach in any sport, you better have an idea of who you're going to bring in before you do it. And people can throw in a billion names in the chat. Great. But I think that's something you've really got to look at is who are you going to bring in? And I think if Hines Ward, I don't know, I'm 50-50 on players coming back to their teams. Like we saw with Joey Porter, and I heard Arthur Motes talking about it recently, and he said it's so hard with the type of player that was. Maybe Hines Ward's is a bit different, but if he misses out on the head coaching role, I saw he was interviewed with the Texans. Do you bring him? Do you look at what he might be able to do? But I just think with Canada, they need an experienced offensive coordinator, whether you're bringing in a veteran or or you're bringing in a rookie. There needs to be a really experienced offensive coordinator coming here.
They need someone to build a plan throughout the game and build a plan throughout the week and build a plan throughout the season and the year and say, okay, we're going to run Najee this game and do these certain things to get him involved. When he starts to get involved, that means that DJ is going to get open up here. When DJ gets open up, we go back to Claypool and feed that. And then next minute we run a fake with the QB. There is none of that with Canada right now. And I'm not an expert, but anyone can see it. There is none of that. We run the football 1st and 10, we get 2nd and 10. And then we run it again and we get 2nd and 11. Oh, sorry, 3rd.
I mean, if we're going to draft a quarterback as well, if Doug Peterson doesn't get a coaching role, have a look at him. You need to get someone that's going to speak the quarterback language, but has run an NFL team, ideally, as a coach, if not as the head coach, if not a coordinator. But I think that they need someone in here, and I bring up good fella like Mike Munchak, great. And I know he did the run game stuff apart from being the O-line coach. But I think we need someone that's going to come in and create, as Mark said there, a plan. And even if you're the quarterback coach, you're a quarterback-leaning offensive coordinator, you'd be silly not to sit there and go, the run game's going to help me out. The run game can take a lot of the load. The run game can take time on the clock. The run game can make it easier on the veteran or the rookie QB. I think we need someone that speaks quarterback, if you like, or is like a quarterback whisperer. I think we need that in where the team is at right now, because we're going to have new people on the O-line again. And consistency is really important on the O-line. I don't know. For me, it's just you need to bring in someone that speaks quarterback. It's just
do the Steelers need to hire outside the organization to shake up the organization?
Yes. I'm sick of hiring internally.
I agree completely.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there's a difference between promoting, like, let's just say they were going to promote Sullivan versus promoting Terrell Austin. I think that's a different thing. Terrell Austin has been scheming up what they're doing in the secondary for a while. But at OC, they need an external philosophy. Also, Mike Tomlin is not, yes, I know he started out as a wide receivers coach, but he's been a defensive-minded coach in the NFL for a long time now. But Rich and I were talking about it when we finished the Touchdown Under 3 or 4 weeks ago that we did together. We sat there, and one of the things that Rich said, and I completely agree with it, is that Mike Tomlin, in a way, it's nothing. We're both big fans of Mike Tomlin, and I hope I'm, doing Rich justice in what I'm saying here. But Mike Tomlin needs to be challenged, right? He needs to have coordinators in here. I'm not saying they have arguments and confrontations. I'm saying challenged of saying, this is what we could be implementing here. In my experience, this means there. And you're clearly not getting that right now. And, it's that whole concept of yes and no people. And do we have a lot of yes people in there in the coordinator position versus people that are willing to push back and say, no, this is what we should do. In my experience, this is what we need to do. This has been successful elsewhere. This is what I've done. Matt Canada can't say that because he can only talk about the college game in that success. And it's a different game.
for me, it's like if you look on the offense, right, and everyone feels comfortable, the QB, the O-line, the receivers, all those guys, tight ends, running backs, and you go ask them, how'd you play this season? Oh, I think I played pretty good. I played great. We won 9 games. We got the playoffs, right? You need that outside coach to come in and go, no, you're all terrible. You sucked. You should have got 14 games. What do you mean? We got 9 games. We made the playoffs. Isn't that good enough? No, you need someone to shake it up. And if you hire internally, I don't think you get that with this Steelers team. It's or isn't the 29th offensive? That's pretty good, right? It's better than 3 other teams. No, you need to be about 10. Like you need that shake up. I think in the locker room, a new quarterback's going to do that. It could be Mason. It could be Haskins. Could be anyone else. Who knows? At this stage, we're still in the playoffs. We don't know. But if you bring someone else into the business, and he looks at it from the outside perspective and goes, "Oh, fellas, what are you doing? You got to clean that up. You need to do a lot better than what we are. You can be a top 5 team, but you're happy with being average." And that's what I think a lot of these players are doing. I think some of these players like Claypool and sometimes the running backs or even the O-line, they're just happy competing and doing their best. You need that excel and that drive to go 1 step further, 2 steps further. And we had that. And something happened about in what a commenter, I think even Tyler said, when AB left, these things started to fall down with certain aspects of the game, and we haven't been competitive really since 2016. It just hasn't happened, and that's now been about 8 years, in my opinion. We've just been 50-50, and we have such great talent. That's the thing. What really boggles my mind. We have such great talent. DJ, like you said, why is he getting targeted near the end of the game when he should be getting targeted at the start and getting things moving and just start to question the defense? And we're just so bland.
well, do you go after someone like Kevin O'Connell from the Rams? Now the Rams are probably paying him a stack ton of money, and Finn in the live chat said that maybe they don't want to pay good teams, but Kevin O'Connell, there's a guy there that and some people might be going, "Oh my God, why are you saying that?" I'm using him as an example, but he was a quarterback, and he's been the OC for Washington in 2019, the OC, with the Rams since then. He's done pretty well with the Rams since he's been there, and he's a younger coach. Or maybe he wants to, he's been there with, as I say, offensive coordinator. Maybe he wants to go in and work with someone. Obviously Sean McVay at the Rams is someone that, will really dominate in terms of what he wants to do on offense. But you look at the offense that he's done here, was averaging, he was pretty poor when it was at Washington, but that was the situation there. But in, 2020 with the Rams, number 1 in yard differential, top 10 in most different aspects of the thing. I'm just saying, throwing him as a name out. You need to go, but I think you need to go get someone that is in the NFL. Don't look at the college game. We need an experienced NFL offensive. Now, I was going with someone younger there because I think that we do need to get a bit younger in the way our philosophy is on a lot of things. But then go find someone else experienced. Like, I originally would have thought, do you go get like a Matt Nagy? But the problem with the Matt Nagy is I think he did awful with Justin Fields. And we, as I said, we need someone that is going to get this quarterback relationship right, because that is vital. Absolutely
I want someone that can scare the defense. That the defensive coordinator for the other team goes, "Oh man, how are we going to stop this offense today?"
100%. And pre-snap, they can't just be relying on a bunch of pre-snap motion.
Some of those motions didn't even work. I feel they didn't even work. Like you look at the motions, they're just going through the motion, and then nothing happened. The check down.
It's like the classic saying though, like all that pre-snap motion was like all sauce, no sizzle.
Nothing happened. A lot of times, nothing happened out of it, and the defense was just like sitting back, going, "Okay, you want to do that?" And then the play happens, and the next minute's a 2-yard loss. They need a bit of a shake-up. I'll ask you this question. Though I was going to answer my own question. Who needs to be shaken up? Who needs to be shaken up more? The offensive coordinator, if he gets done, or a defensive coordinator?
In what way though? Because obviously we're going to get the change with Keith.
Well, who needs to Who needs to improve 10 times better on the defense?
The offense, without a doubt.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we definitely need someone like that.
The defense can't stay on the field. If you want a defense that's going to be like top 5 or 10 in the league, You can't have them on the field for that long. You're asking the impossible. We will burn TJ Watt out. We'll burn TJ Watt out.
I was just gonna say, imagine if like the defensive coordinator just had like his notes were just like TJ, just put TJ on the field and I think you win. That's all he had was for a play call was just blitz him 90% of the time and I think you win the game. But that's why it frustrates me. 22 and a half sacks. He should have got the record. He will win Defensive Player of the Year. And we're in the same position because the offense can't move the football. And Najee will be, I've got a prediction. Hot take in January. I think Najee will be the leading rusher next year if we can get the O-line going. I think he can.
I think he'll be two. I think he'll be second.
Ooh,
I think it's going to be hard to be ahead of Jonathan Taylor if Jonathan Taylor.
You reckon he can back it up though? You think John Taylor can
that
back it up?
O-line. Mate, when I was watching him a couple of weeks ago and he did the 56-yard run off the first play of the game and they were missing 3 of their starting O-linemen, I'm like, jeez,
I just think Najee has all.
He's also a bit different. It's a bit different to Najee because Taylor, I would say, is capable of breaking a longer run, and that helps you with the overall yardage. I think Najee could have more TDs, but I think it's going to be harder for Najee to have the yardage side of things. Look, as I said, and I want to go back to the Kevin O'Connell thing. That was just an example. I've not really looked at him, much at all, but I just know that he's a good example of a young guy that you might want to bring in. But as I say, they've got to do something here. The problem is that they don't want to, and this is where I go back to what Dave says, and I agree with it. You don't want to change for change's sake. Too much change creates too many variables, and it's hard to get better when you're trying to, introduce people and bring people along and change everything up all the time. Also, the players, like they said a lot. Some things changed. They had to learn new terminology. How many times you can't be giving players a new playbook every year, new terminology every year, because they're going to take 6 to 8 weeks to learn that. That's the reality of it. So
100%.
we need to be really they need to be very astute and strategic. Astute, I love that word, and Shannon's been using it, and I agree. But yeah, they have to be very astute and strategic in what they do, to be able to, from the coaching side of things, heading into this next season. And I saw it in the live chat. I 100% think that they're a playoff team next year, but I'm yet to be proven whether there is someone that's going to do anything in the playoffs. They'll be a better team than they were this year.
That's the big question. I think they're actually a better team than they were last year too. That's what it pains me to say with all the Najee and Muth and some of the fellas, the receivers. We just need to be better, and it's just such a bland offense. And even Rhino Tool says here, and I agree with him 100%. You need someone who has a threat of a run at least a pocket QB.
Well, so yeah, just me had asked, "Hey fam, do you want to stay with a pocket QB, or do we need to move to mobile QB?" This is the question. Like, I think, as Tomlin said, mobility is big, right? But when you've got Najee Harris, you're going to run the ball a certain amount of the time anyway. I want someone that's capable of doing play action. There's no point having Najee Harris if you're not going to have the threat of play action as well. And I know Ben moved away from that, so that's got to come back. When you talk about a pocket QB that can run, there are some quarterbacks in this draft class, and this is where. I'm also a bit sick, Mark, of people saying, oh, this is a bad quarterback class. Apart from Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance, it was all about potential. They pretty much said the same thing last year. And look at what, people rubbished Mac Jones.
I'm going to
what he did this year, right? So I'm parking this is a crap quarterback class thing because you don't know until they enter the league. I actually don't care, right?
Who's the guy that does all the mock drafts? Mel Kiper? I'm going to wait for Mel Kiper's 27th mock draft to reform my opinion. All right.
Yeah. We're not even in the draft process yet. We haven't had the Senior Bowl. We haven't had any of the combine. Things are going to change. And then, I was listening to Move the Sticks yesterday, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks. They were talking about it. There's also a lot of GM and coaching changes to happen. That's going to completely flip a lot of draft picks on their heads because there's going to be different philosophies, different focuses, all the rest of it. So, putting that to one side. But you talk about pocket QBs. A guy that I'm really high on, who might even be there in the second round, is Carson Strong. He's definitely more of a pocket passer. He can move his feet. I think he definitely needs to put on 15 to 20 pounds if he's going to play in the NFL, and be able to take some hits. But I love what he does, and I love that he's accurate downfield. And I see a lot of his throws, and I think, wow, wouldn't he be great with Najee Harris. He's not a Lamar Jackson by any stretch of imagination. I think his throwing footwork needs a little bit of work from what I've seen, but I have seen him move in the pocket, and I think he moves really well in the pocket, and he can run if he needs to. But if you don't fix this O-line, it doesn't matter whether we talked about this in previewing the Chiefs game. Patrick Mahomes ran around for 494 yards in the Super Bowl, and his team got thrashed. It doesn't matter how mobile you are if your O-line isn't going to give you the time and space to throw the football.
Yeah. Hey, Matty, I got another question.
Sorry,
for you,
I'm
Matt.
getting on rants today.
I got another question for you. Will it be two options? Will it be weird or exciting to see another QB behind center rather than Big Ben?
I think it'd be weird at the start, but I'm actually excited by it. You know, I'm excited by it. We talked about this a little bit during the Browns. I think it was relating to when we were previewing the Browns. You hear a lot of the other BTSC guys talk about Big Ben, and they were in college and they were getting married and all the rest of it when Big Ben started out, and now they have teenage kids, right? You and I, and some of them were 10 and 20 years difference between some of the guys across BTSC. But we kind of get to go on a ride and see, who the next quarterback is going to be and, get used to it. And then our kids are going to, come along in the next decade or so, and they're going to be fans of, hopefully we've got that, franchise quarterback or like a good quarterback, at least a solid one by then. And they're going to be on that ride as well. And we're going to be able to say, we saw them start out and do these different things. Yeah. And so I'm excited by it. And, life rolls on. There's going to be change. Change is a constant of life, right? We had 18 seasons. And the other thing, even if you have the best O-line in the league, I think Ben and this defense, Ben takes you to the AFC Championship game. Do you win a Super Bowl? I know you got to be in the dance to win it, but maybe not, right? And like the classic saying goes, all good things come to an end at some point.
Yeah, well, who was that bloke from the Cowboys when he was talking about Romo? That's my quarterback. Who was that guy? I can't remember his name right now. Oh, you guys, the live chat will know who it is. The bloke who said, that's my quarterback. I can't remember his name. It's just escaped the top of my head. When he was talking about, he's talking about Tony.
I hate Romo. Trying to say I hate Romo. I'm sick of his commentary.
Dude, Terrell Owens. Yeah, when he's like, that's my quarterback. It's weird, man. It's a little bit weird because I think, yes, you and I are in a position now to talk about the Steelers and we love it. Two blokes from Australia. But man, he's my quarterback. I've known him since 2004. That's pretty much it. The whole time, 18 years of fandom. But I am excited at the same time to cheer a new bloke on. I'd be more excited actually if it was just a brand new quarterback and it wasn't Mason. If it was Haskins, I'd be pretty excited to cheer him on. But like a new guy, if it was a rookie, I don't care. I'd be like, let's see what he's got.
I kind of want to see. People are going to freak out about this. If we're not going to draft someone, and again, they're not going to be ready week one, and if we're not going to bring in like a Derek Carr or better, I kind of want to see what Mason does. Maybe Mason has learned a bit, and he talked about different mentality. Big Ben talked about different mentality when you're the starter. He's been familiar with these guys. Jeffrey Benedict said some of Claypool's best games have been with Mason. Juju works with Mason. Deontay works with Mason. The only person that really doesn't work with Mason is Washington. Like Mason, the other thing that I want to remind people of, which I found it so frustrating this week. You bash Mason Rudolph, right? When he was playing quarterback, putting all the helmet hits, the unfair concussion aside, who was Mason Rudolph's running back?
At the time, wasn't it Connor?
Connor when he was fit and Snell.
Yeah, it's true.
Even behind that O-line, right? Which was decent at pass pro. But Mason with Najee Harris? I like that a lot more, right? And Najee Harris not in his rookie year, an O-line that will be better than this year, an O-line that knows how to run the football, an O-line. Another thing that not a lot of people of O-line aren't talking about is the inside, zone versus, outside zone, as well when the blocking. And there's issues there with Chris Morgan and what have you. I know just me, Mason, I agree. But Mason, with this defense, is almost it, right? These wide receivers are good. Najee's in the top 5. Freeman's the top 5 tight end in this league with the right quarterback and the right blocking, right? And Finn says Samuels. Yeah, Samuels in there, but Snell was in there too. And all I'm saying is if you go run heavy, Mason almost got us, I know I'm with Duck, but I tell you, I went to the Bills game that year. Duck was no, right? The games that he won, look at what the defense did. All I'm saying is Mason is capable of 7 wins minimum in the team the way it's set up right now. And, if he's improved a bit, maybe it's 9. It's not going to be worse than this year, right? That's all I'm saying. Unless he's regressed, but none of us know.
We don't know yet.
None of us know.
That's the thing. You know what? I want to say one thing because I know we have to cut the show soon, but I want to say one thing about Mason because we're going to talk about this the whole off season, right? He's 26 years old now. He's getting older. And when you start to get older, you start to play better, I think. You're not a young chap like 22, 23. As you get older, and in every code, no matter what, you even see it with Cameron Hayward now. He's getting to be an old man at 32, and he's playing lights out. Give Mason a chance, and we will discuss it in more detail over the next few shows, the next few weeks, for sure. Who's going to be better? Is it Mason or Haskins? But you can't just bash him right now when he hasn't didn't even play this year, really. He played one game.
And I think Mason as well as I don't mean to interrupt, but I think Mason is a swag player. Someone's brought up Gardner Minshew. But I think if Mason is the quarterback week on week and he can see he's got time, a bit of trust in him, a bit of time to, develop and go through, I don't know. I don't think he's there are worse backups or there are worse quarterbacks entering the league. And I'd rather see Mason than have Baker Mayfield. That's all.
100%. You don't think there's fire under the Mason Rudolph tree? Dude, there's fire. I think even in the exit interview, he's like, I think I'm ready to play now. Like I deserve now I have a shot. Like imagine being a backup and knowing you cannot play starter. You just can't play because 100%. You know that Big Ben's got the job 100%. It does not matter. And I've been in the work environment too. You're better than someone else, but yet they still get the job over you. Just saying.
Mate, you brought up a really good point. How many people in their professional lives have worked for a manager that's in a position where they're not going up, right? And you have to leave to go up elsewhere. Some people wait it out. I literally 6 years ago in this position, my boss would even say to me, "You're ready to take you are capable of doing my job." There was no path for them to move. Had to move on, and move to a similar level, and what have you. Great, great boss for me. Get on really well, really value it. But at some point, you need to be able to take your own step. And I think Mason talked too long in that 17-minute interview that he did. I think he said they doubled over on some things, but just give the guy a shot. Like I liked what Haskins had to say. I'm less confident about Haskins because I know Washington are a basket case of a franchise, but the thing about Haskins for me is there's a lot of change that needs to happen. And if he was that good, why couldn't he have picked up Canada's offense and, he can move around and stuff? Why couldn't he have picked it up? And they would have played him in some games. Like when they took Ben off, maybe, I don't know whether it was hard because there was games when you just were like, take Ben off, and they didn't because it was his last season. So, it's a hard one. But also I saw it. I don't know which show it came up on. I don't know if it was BTSC or another show I listened to, obviously a lot of stuff. But someone said, is a rookie quarterback any ready to play for the Steelers than Rudolph and learning the offense and being in the NFL? No, they're not, right? And this is the thing for me. I would like to see them draft a quarterback in the second round, I think, or move up back into the first. I think there's going to be guys there, right? But even if you do that, you're going to need to give that person 6 to 8 weeks to learn the NFL offense, to go through the weeks where they're the starting quarterback, to do the Wednesdays, what have you, if Mason has the odd one off or whatever it is, you're going to need them to give them time to get acclimated. If you bring in another veteran that's not like a Tyrod Taylor, if you bring in Derek Carr, you're obviously not drafting the quarterback because there's no point in doing it. But I think Mason can get us halfway through the season if you had to, before you bring in and start to work in a rookie quarterback. And I also think there's something to be said with, yes, a lot of people love to see the redshirting of quarterbacks. Mahomes redshirted because Alex Smith was a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But you also need to see quarterbacks play, right? And I think Mason could be that person that's actually really helpful for the Steelers if they do want to go down the draft pick route and they do want to go down developing someone. So I just think the other thing is none of us really know. And I'm not sure that this, and people going about Steelers always having a plan. I'm not sure the Steelers know yet, because do they know what they're doing with the offensive coordinator? No, they don't. Do they know which O-linemen are going to be free or not? No, they don't. Do they know which people are going to be cut or not? There are a lot of cuts that are going to come for a lot of teams. I talk about this in Cap Room. That creates cap space. That means teams can go after and do different things. Also, look at the trades that happened last year right before the draft, between Miami and Philadelphia and the Giants and all the rest of it. If that happens again, it completely shakes up the draft order. I saw a mock draft yesterday from Daniel Jeremiah, and he was talking about, Thibodeau, who's a 1 or 2 pick in most people's mocks, falling all the way to 6 with the Jets, because if you look at the different flow of what actually happens if GMs change it and stuff. I saw and he had Charlie Cross going to the Steelers. Some people have Charlie Cross in the top 8 picks, right? I don't think he's worth a top 8 pick. But if he fell to us, I'm like, maybe at tackle.
Matty. It's January.
Exactly. But this is my point. So much is going to change. It's going to change.
We have a long way to go on Steelers touchdown under. It's January. We still have the playoffs going on. Don't freak out anyone. It could be Rudolph, could be Haskins. We don't know yet. We've got so much to talk about in the future. We'll be right, mate. Be right.
Yeah. But that's all I'm saying is there's so much change that can happen. And until draft night, first round, actually kicks off, and even then, there can be trades, right?
I know.
You just got to sit there, and it doesn't matter whether the person works for NFL Network or whether with BTSC or there's some person on Twitter. I respect all the people that are other podcasters. I respect actual NFL journalists. None of us know until they call out the picks. None of us know. People can say, like I like to do a war room, I can say this guy's a fit. If he is a fit, fine. I've got to put my money where my mouth and say there's a prediction, right? But you can say this person's a fit. We can say Case Keenum would be great. Still, whoever, Trey Lance, whoever it is. If they're not with the team, they're not with the team. We don't know until draft night. But it's fun playing armchair. It's fun playing armchair GM.
That's why we do the show. That's why we have so much fun on the show. We could talk forever, but
we could, but we kind of need to wrap up the show. Classic. Mark, what do Steelers fans need to be thinking about this week?
The Bengals need to lose, mate. That's all we got to think about. All right. The Bengals are up right now. I'm going to go watch the game. As I don't want them to win. I want the Bengals to lose because I hate them. Can't stand the Bengals. Just got to be positive, man. It's a new year. Like, no matter what happens, like I said, it's going to be weird without Big Ben, but it's going to be exciting for a new QB. And we're getting better. This team is getting better. We just the guys got to fire up. That's all I need. I want them to fire up.
Thanks, good fella. Thanks for joining. We love seeing you in the live chat. As always, we love seeing all of our regulars in the live chat. Rhino Tool says, don't wrap it up. Yeah, it's kind of like you want to do an encore, but we can't split the parts. Ryan, I would say follow Mark's Steel Nation Australia, because Mark and I are trying to do, it's Mark's channel, but Mark's having me on a little bit here and there as well. And there's some things I'm looking at as we go through this draft process as well, in terms of some content stuff. So stay tuned on that. But it's definitely, these shows go so quickly each week for us, and it's a very quick hour and a bit. We love doing them. You guys make it what it is, particularly, our regulars, and on the audio side too. We often, are very live chat driven in this show, but there's an audio following that we have that have been with us since day one. And so, if you ever miss our shows or, you've got a conflict, we appreciate it. Saturday evenings in the US that we go live. Do download us and listen on the audio side of things. Same with all the BTSC shows. But yeah, we really appreciate it. And yeah, just have fun. Take it in the stride with this off season. There's a lot to go under the bridge, water to go under the bridge. And, my recommendation would be as well, if you're going to look at different players in the draft, move outside your Alabamas and your Georgias and your, Texas A&Ms and your Clemsons and all that, and have a look at the smaller schools, because the Steelers always draft someone from some of the smaller schools or conferences. And that's really fun, like an Alex Highsmith from a Charlotte, a Kendrick Green from an Illinois. Even Loudon, Wisconsin haven't been that good a team. I like their inside linebacker for depth, Jack Sanborn. But who knows what who knows where he's going to be drafted. His stock's fallen in the last few years. Cincinnati have a lot of players outside of, Ahmad Gardner and Kobe Bryant and Desmond Ridder. They've got some other players that are worth looking at, like Beavers, the linebacker. Utah are a team worth looking at. I watched a bit of Wake Forest this year. I found myself enjoying some of their players. They have a great wide receiver that I like, who might go undrafted, might go 7th, 6th round, in Jakari Roberson. I love what he does. I think he'd be a great fit for us. Finn brings up Deontay Johnson was a nobody. That's right. So I just really think, you just need to have a look at some of the other players that you're not necessarily seeing in the bowl games all the time. Have a look at the other colleges, because there's some interesting things to pull out from them. But with that, that's this week's Steelers touch down under. As always,
Go
Mark.
Steelers! Oh no, I jumped the gun there. Sorry, my bad.
Almost, because I was about to cough mid.
All right, then one more time. You start from the top.
Oh, geez, we're finishing like Matt Canada does. That's it for this week on Steelers touch down under. As always,
go Steelers! Oh, we did it again, mate. It must be the lag. All right, that's it.
They've had enough. They're not hearing it a third time. I need to cough. That's it.